Hey students, back with another read aloud, and the title of this chapter is called Seal Blubber. Flora's father's car seat smelled like butterscotch and ketchup, and Flora was in the back seat, where the smell of butterscotch and ketchup was the most powerful. She had a Bootsy Boots shoebox with Ulysses in it on her lap, and she was feeling carsick even though the car wasn't even moving yet. She was also feeling the tiniest bit overwhelmed. Things in general were pretty confusing. For instance, here was Ulysses, sitting in a shoebox, knowing that there was a shovel in the trunk of the car and that the man driving the car had been instructed to whack him over the head with a shovel. And the squirrel didn't look worried or afraid. He looked happy. And then there was Flora's mother, the person who'd given Flora the shoebox. To protect your little friend on his journey, we'll just put a washcloth in here so he can have a comfy blanket. She was standing at the door, smiling and waving goodbye to them as if she weren't a murder-planning arch-nemesis. Talk about the darkness of 10,000 hands. Nothing was as it seemed. Flora looked down at the squirrel. Of course, he was not what he seemed either, and that was a good thing. An incandesto thing. Flora felt a shiver of relief. Flora felt a shiver of belief, of possibility pass through her. Her parents had no idea what kind of squirrel they were dealing with. Her father put the car in reverse. He backed out of the driveway, and Flora saw William Spiver standing in Tootie's yard. He was looking up at the sky. He turned his head slowly in the direction of the car. His glasses flashed in the sun. Tootie appeared. She was waving one of the pink gloves as if it were a flag of surrender. "Stop the car!" she shouted. "Step on the gas," Flora said to her father. She didn't want to talk to Tootie, and she definitely did not want to talk to William Spiver. She didn't want to see herself reflected in his dark glasses. She had her own thoughts about the random and confusing nature of the universe. She didn't need his too. Also, she was in a hurry. There was a murder to stop, a superhero to mentor, villains to vanquish, and darkness to eradicate. She couldn't waste time trading stupid thoughts with William Spiver. "Florabelle," shouted William Spiver, almost as if he were reading her mind. "I've had some interesting thoughts." He ran toward the car and fell into the bushes. "Great Aunt Tootie," he said, "I need your assistance." "What in the world is going on?" said her father. He slammed on the brakes. "It's just a temporarily blind boy," said Flora, "and Mrs. Tickham from next door. She's his aunt. His great-great-aunt. No, great-aunt. Never mind. It doesn't make any difference. Keep going." But it was too late. Tootie had helped William Spiver out of the bushes, and the two of them were walking toward the car. William Spiver was smiling. "Hello," her father called out to them. "I'm George Buckman. How do you do?" Flora's father introduced himself to everyone all the time, even if the person was someone he'd already met. It was an annoying and extremely persistent habit. "Hello, sir," said William Spiver. "I'm William Spiver. I'd like to speak to your daughter, Florabelle." "I don't have time to talk right now, William Spiver," said Flora. "Great Aunt Tootie, can you assist me? Will you take me to Flora's side of the vehicle?" "Please excuse me while I escort this extremely disturbed and neurotic child to the other side of the car," said Tootie. Certainly," said Flora's father, and then, to absolutely no one, he said, "George Buckman, how do you do?" Flora sighed. She looked down at Ulysses. Considering human beings she was surrounded by, believing in a squirrel seemed like an increasingly reasonable plan of action. "I wanted to apologize," said William Spiver, who was now standing beside her window. "For what?" said Flora. It wasn't the worst poetry I'd ever heard." "Oh," said Flora. "And also I'm sorry that I wouldn't take off my glasses when you asked me to." "Take them off now," said Flora. I can't," said William Spiver. "They've been glued to my head by evil forces beyond my control." "You lie," said Flora. Yes, no, I don't." "I do. I'm engaging in hyperbole. You should remember what that means. I am engaging in hyperbole. It seems as if the glasses have been glued to my head. He lowered his voice. Actually, I'm afraid that if I take my glasses off, the world will unravel. That's stupid, said Flora. There are bigger things to worry about. For instance? Flora realized that she was going to say something to William Spiver that she hadn't intended to say. The words were out of her mouth before she could even stop them. Do you know what an arch nemesis is? Said Flora. Of course I do, William Spiver said back. Right, said Flora. Well, Ulysses has got one. It's my mother. William Spiver's eyebrows rose up above his dark glasses. Flora was pleased to note that he looked properly surprised and shocked. Speaking of Ulysses, said Tooty, I have some poetry I'd like to recite to him. Are you sure that right now is the best time for a poetry recitation? Said William. Ulysses sat up straighter in his bootsy boots shoebox, and he looked at Tooty and nodded. I was moved by your poetry, said Tooty to the squirrel. Ulysses puffed out his chest. And I have some poetry that I would like to recite to you in honor of your recent transformation in life. Tooty put a hand on her chest. This is Rilke, she said. You, sent out beyond your recall, go to the limits of your longing, embody me, flare up like a flame, and make big shadows I can move in. Ulysses stared up at Tooty, his eyes bright. Flare up like a flame, said Flora's father from the front seat. That is moving. Yes, that is quite lovely. Well, thank you so much. We have to be on our way now. But will you return? Asked William Spiver. Flora looked up and saw William Spiver's words hanging in the air above him like a small, tattered flag. But will you return? I'm just spending the afternoon with my father, William Spiver, she said. It's not like I'm heading off to the South Pole. Terrible things can happen to you had done an extensive piece on what to do if you were stranded at the South Pole. Their advice could be summed up in 3 simple words. Eat, seal, blubber. It was astonishing, really, what people could live through. Flora felt cheered up all of a sudden. Thinking about seal blubber and doing impossible things, surviving when the odds were against her and her squirrel. They would figure out a way to outwit the arch nemesis. They would triumph over the shovel and the sack, and they would triumph together, like Dolores and Incandesto. I'm glad, said William Spiver. I'm glad you're not going to the South Pole, Florabelle. Flora's father cleared his throat. George Buckman, he said. How do you do? It was nice to meet you, sir, said William Spiver. Remember those words, said Tooty. Flare up like a flame, said Flora's father. I was speaking to the squirrel. Oh, of course, said Flora's father. My apologies, the squirrel. I will see you again, said William Spiver. Beware the arch nemesis, said Flora. I'll see you again, said William Spiver. We're off to fight evil, said Flora as her father backed out of the driveway, and William Spiver waved at the car. I'll see you again. He didn't seem so stuck on the idea of seeing her again that Flora didn't have the heart. He seemed so stuck on the idea of seeing her again that Flora didn't have the heart to tell him that he was waving in the wrong direction. All right. You'll have a quick prompt to answer about that chapter today. You'll be able to find it in classwork. We're also going to talk about it during our meet.